Welcome to this town hall. It's April 17th, 2024, town hall 115. When we hit 200, everyone is going to get a free gadget, courtesy of Scott's like, don't say it, don't say it. Courtesy of Big. So 75 more episodes. As long as the world still exists by then, we'll talk about it. Let's go to the next slide. So welcome. My name's John Best, new and improved John Best, as you can see. I'm actually not even here. This is just ChatGPT and something John cooked up so that he doesn't have to come to town halls anymore. And it's working out pretty well. Does it sound like me? So pretty happy about that. I am the CEO of Best Innovation Group and a co-founder. And usually with me, and I'm sure he'll be here soon, he's probably just wrapping up a meeting, is you might see me do this sometimes and you're probably like, what's he doing? But don't worry about that. That's just doctor's orders. But Mike Lawson, who is the creator and host of CU Broadcast, and definitely someone who is everywhere in the credit union space, and someone you definitely want to look into and talk to. So let's get to the next one. And our sponsors, we have CUNA Councils, soon to be America's Credit Union, or is America's Credit Union at this point. If you haven't been to one of their many meetings, I highly recommend it. Actually have a CUNA meeting coming up for those of you that are CEOs. If you were at the GAC and you could not get into the meeting that I held that was CEOs only, we are doing it again as a virtual, Glenn and I. And so I think Melissa or Madison probably can put the information in the chat if they have it. If not, we'll get it mailed out to this group. But we'll be doing that meeting again, and back by popular demand. And if you know me, no two meetings are the same. So who knows what happens in that next one. Actually, we'll be following almost the same agenda, but a little bit different because we won't have everybody in the room to do the breakout sessions. Hey, guess what, Scott? Fraud is going through the roof with all credit unions right now. It's amazing how much fraud is happening, and it's because now they can attack the banks, the community banks, and the credit unions all at once, thanks to AI. It used to be they had to focus on one or the other, and now not so much anymore. So we're seeing tons of that. Every CEO I've talked to is seeing more and more fraud, particularly in the southern states right now and the far west. Middle of the country is catching up, but I think they're going to see the same thing soon. So Illuma Labs is a great partner of this show, and someone who's been working tirelessly for years since we first met him in 2017 to try to come up with a way that you don't have to get on a call center and spend like 10 minutes trying to prove who you are by answering vague questions about your account or things that you don't know. My favorite one is, what did you spend the last time? And it's like, I share this account with other people, got no idea. You're gonna have to wait for me to log in and look. And what use is that, right? So Illuma Labs is a very good product with regard to that, and it's seamless and transparent. And I know they're talking to MemberPass, Bonify, so I think there's a lot of good starting to happen in that space, and I encourage everybody to keep an eye on it. And then there's Typhone and their new platform, Infinia. So they've really kind of said, hey, we're going to go a whole new way about doing things. And with Infinia, they've got a suite of digital payment solutions. One of the big ones is FedNow, which is really starting to take flight. That's one of the things we had a big discussion on in that GAC council meeting, was things like FedNow, RTP, and if Glenn were here, he would tell you that the adoption has been really amazing and surprising as well. How much has picked up for the folks that are actually using it. But there are some scary things about it. What happens if retailers start using it, right? So it's fascinating to see what's happening in the world of payments, but we're going to have to kind of roll with it, as we know, and Typhone is on top of it. So if you have not had a chance to talk to them, I highly recommend it, because Keith Riddle, good friend of mine who's been in this business for, God, as long as I can remember, really has seen every aspect of these markets and understands what's going on. So let's get to the next slide here. All right, today's giveaway. We are giving away tiles, and you could strap them to, and you got a dog, you could stick this to their head. You got a kid, you could put it in their shoe. They'll walk a little funny, but you'll be able to find them. And tile was the original Apple tag, for those of you that don't know. Um, what I like about these is Apple tags only come in basically that circle there, but I really kind of like the form factor of the credit card, particularly for wallets and things like that. It's a good system. They've been around a long, long time, and we'll be giving away those. So if you would like to win that, what you're going to have to do is go into our chat, and then you're going to have to put your name in and to be considered. So if you're interested, you can do that. Let's. Oh, by the way, this is sponsored by Scott himself personally. He bought these, and so did Amber. Mike's here, and he's trying to figure out what's going on at the moment.
What are
So
you
we'll get to that
doing?
in a minute. Just relax, Mike. It'll all come together. You'll see. But anyways, this is sponsored by William Mills. If you've not worked with them, if you're a fintech, or even if you're not, God, they are just good people to know. I really had the good. I've had a lot of interaction with Scott. I've been very fortunate to work with him and Amber, but I got the good pleasure of seeing him with William the other day, and wow, just the breadth of knowledge in that organization about what's going on in the spaces is amazing. So just if you're not checking them out, you should, because you can find, they vet all their fintechs. They do a great job of making sure that the organizations that they work with are really valuable to you. So check them out, and thanks for sponsoring.
I
Let's
love
move
Tile,
on.
by the way. I love Tile, by the way. I've been using them for
Tile
years.
is a
They're
great
awesome.
thing.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about this Department of Justice. Whoops, hang on.
Is that dog real, John?
All right, so you're wondering what's going on here. So I'll do the big reveal. So no, I have not completely made an AI out of myself. We made a purchase because we were interested in seeing what it does. So I'll do the reveal here. Um, so if you look on the screen, you should see another me. And if you see another me, and for those of you that aren't, if you could take the screen sharing down, that would be great. Let's go ahead and kill off this for now, and we'll come back to it. So what I've got, Mike, is the Apple Vision Pro.
Oh, congratulations.
And that is the virtual version of me. It had Zoom as an app. Now, what I want you guys to see is, look at this. There are no cameras focused on me. Zero. The only camera that's focused on me is this other Zoom camera, which is just a laptop I have pointed at me. Everything you're seeing, and if Madison, could you spotlight the Apple Vision Pro user of me? So just click on it. Yeah. So everything you're seeing it took me 2 minutes to set up. You create a persona,
Right.
you go in, you do like a quick up and down video. And obviously I had to pick some glasses to make it look like me, and they don't have a lot of choices. My options were, you ever see, Mike, you ever see Monsters Inc.? You know that lady
Yes.
that's behind the counter? It talks
Yes.
like this. That was the other option.
So
That I had
watching
her
you.
glasses.
Yes.
Yeah, we're watching you. Get over there. So, but look, I mean, everything I do, you're pretty much seeing. I I've never experienced a system. I've done, as you know, a ton of this, right? I've been doing it since 2017. You and I've
Yeah.
been through the first thing of HoloLens, the
Yeah.
Oculus. We've done online meetings, but
So
this
does
is
it have
pretty
cameras
impressive.
looking out that shows your hands? How's it picking up your hands?
Good question.
It definitely has cameras looking out. So it has cameras looking out in front of me. There's lots of cameras, probably a million of them around here. Melissa, can you post that thing on how it was doing it in the chat? Again,
Sure.
she
Yes.
posted a really good explanation that I thought was cool. But what's interesting about this is that, one, it created this background behind me, so you can see, and that has nothing to do. I could be anywhere. Two, it's got 12 cameras and 5 sensors. So like things like this, like,
Yes.
I mean, I didn't like have to go through and do 50 million facial expressions to create this. It created it for me just from what I'm doing. I could close one eye and close the other, and close both, or both my eyes closed. I've never been able to
Yes.
test because I can't.
They are.
Okay, good.
So I
I
gotta
was worried.
ask, did you do some kind of appearance enhancement when you set it up? Is there a toggle for that? Because
What was it like
it
to-
does, it does look a little bit different, like you've had work done.
Yeah.
So you're
Beverly
suggesting
Hills.
maybe a 10% improvement with AI?
So to answer Ty's question, there was no options. And so what I'm going to try to do is actually share the screen and see if I can show you where that's set up.
Well,
So
I'm imagining it's
I'm
kind
going
of
to
like the
attempt it.
Face ID, like how you set up Face ID. Was it something like that, or
Yeah, it was very close to that.
okay?
It was very close to that. So you should be seeing my
Okay.
screen. Are you seeing my
Oh,
screen?
wow.
Okay, so this is
I'm
what my
getting
world
dizzy.
looks like. Now, what's interesting is I can actually remove it to where you don't see everything, you just see my house, or I can come back and
Oh
do
wow.
this. Yeah, isn't that crazy? And I can have it halfway. So there's the laptop, and there's the thing. So what I can also do is I can look up and I can bring down this. You should still be, are you guys seeing the
Yeah.
menu?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so we'll go into settings and we'll go to persona. And so this is the persona beta. And then
Uh-oh.
John, we're not hearing you now.
We can't
John,
hear
we
you,
don't
bud.
hear you, and your share screen left.
Your AIU left.
And I
Picture's
think
back.
he's not connected on audio.
No, that
So you
whole
can't hear
user, he
anything.
had two users connected and the other one is
Yep.
gone.
Can he read
I'm
chat?
back.
Okay.
There we go.
So what happened is it's not fully realized yet, clearly,
Really?
but you could see what my world looks like in here. What's really interesting is if you have a Mac, you can bring your Mac screen right in front of you. So you can, I'm trying to get it to center. So there's a green thing that's the virtual camera, and you can actually move that camera around. But this is try number one. What do we all know about Apple? That it's going to constantly improve, right? The question is the price point. It's really expensive. This is the cheapest one they make, and it was $3,500. We bought it for the Innovation Club because we're doing some experimentation on what that might look like with the Innovation Club. What could you use this for? I mean, it would make a nice virtual home platform where, if you had people out at their home or something and you wanted them to get on Zoom with members, you could do that. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole shtick is that you can do this persona, but it had Zoom built in. So I thought, I might as well show everybody. This is interesting. I could not believe how well it worked. They make you go through a process when you go buy this from Apple, and they really want to show it to you. And so what they do is they'll go over and they'll go over. Oh, look, I bet I can't get, let's see. Yeah, it's not going to work on that one. There you go. So I've lost my AI stuff. But what they do is they go in and they show you all the things that this thing can do. And one of the things is a dinosaur experience, which I literally thought a dinosaur had bitten off my hand. I was pretty sure it happened because if you see it and your brain goes, yeah, it just bit off your hand, it's hard to not process that as actually happening. It's like, have you ever seen that thing where they hide your hand behind another one and they put a fake hand here and they start touching it and your brain goes, you can feel the touches? You ever seen that?
I can't say that I have.
We'll do that to you when we're
Okay.
together next. We'll do
Okay.
that test. But
Sounds
it's the
exciting.
same effect, right? Like if you see your hand being touched,
Right.
it's interesting. So anyways,
Even
I thought I'd take a
in an
minute.
AI aspect of it, are you talking, John? Even if it's an
Yeah,
AI
it doesn't
hand?
matter if
Okay.
it's like, in fact, the video, I wonder if I could show the video. In fact, the video that they in the video they don't use, it doesn't even have to be like, let's say that the skin tone doesn't even have to be all together, right? It can be however you want it to be. So let me see if I can find it here.
I think I
I'll
just want
call
one
it
of these
fake.
to work on the plane.
Oh, the plane would be the ultimate. I agree
Yeah.
with you. I think the plane would be the ultimate use case because you could really just sit and watch TV or something. And what it does better than any of these other solutions, Oculus and stuff, is it really seems to do a good job of mapping your surroundings and making it actually work. Okay, fake hand experiment, that worked. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to see if I can share this and see.
So clarify
wanna
for me
do-
though, while you're doing that, is it tethered or is there enough computing in it to be a standalone device?
It's a standalone device with the exception of this thing. This is it. This is the whole thing.
Is that
You
like
got
a
this battery pack
battery pack? Yeah.
and you got the headset. That's it.
Wow.
It's not connected to anything else, which is impressive. All right, so you should be looking at my screen.
Yep.
And if you are, I'm going to pull this up so you can see it. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so I don't know if you'll be able to hear it, but I can explain it.
Oh my gosh.
I have an experiment that we're going to do today. Is I'm going to train your brain to believe.
Can you hear it?
This
Yeah.
hand, this arm is your arm. You see, we've got this divider here. So right now you can kind of see your arm. You see the arm there. And I'm going to cover over part of your arm. Now I'm doing that because your eyes talk to your brain. And your eyes tell you this is what's happening. So now, can you physically see your arm, your right arm here? No. Great.
So we should set up a booth for this, Mike.
Classroom rulers.
At
So
GAC,
we're gonna
that'd be
train
great.
sensations. You
Yeah, let's
feel
do it to all the board
emotions
members who come trick-or-treating.
CUNA Tech would be the ideal place for this.
with your mind.
Now, see how they're doing it? So they're training it.
Is your right hand, right? You are believing.
Now,
as I
that dude
drag
had a
the
lot of
ruler
mushrooms
on your
before
right
he
hand
did
there.
this. So I'm not saying
In
it's...
fact, in your brain,
He might have more than one arm.
It totally feels like my hand.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
How long does the battery last?
Line up with each finger.
The battery on this so far, I don't know, about 4 hours.
Yeah.
But I work it to death when I do stuff with it because I've been coding, so I'm back and forth in and out of Xcode tie, so I think it's beating it up a bit. I
What's
like it
the
when you get
input
to the
like if
hammer.
you wanted to
that's the
do
best
like
parts.
typing work or something?
Typing looks like this. So if I go there, do you see the screen? But you could also just use a regular keyboard and mouse.
Oh, okay.
I am not using
So he's not touching the other one. In a minute, he'll do the hammer thing, which is great. Let's see if he. So he does that.
I'm totally feeling it in this hand. It feels indeed.
Let's see when he gets to the hammer. This dude's gonna lose his mind.
When in fact, I'm not actually.
I'm
gonna
gonna lose my mind.
Damage to your hand. All right.
Okay.
We'll start lightly again. Okay.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Very lightly. Here we go. Ugh.
Oh, it's so weird.
I want to see when he actually hits it.
Even when I touch myself.
Yeah.
Oh.
Ah, it's so weird.
Watch this. Watch
But you
this.
can see him reacting with his other hand, the one on the other side of the
Yeah,
partition.
he's gonna watch him
Guess which
freak
finger
out when
it
they
is.
do it.
Guess which finger. See if you can tell me which one it is.
Oh, just hit it. Just hit it.
I could watch that all day. Anyways, all right, enough of this. But you do get the same sensation from this as well. And Mike, we will do a video of you doing that.
Please
soon.
do.
Oh, you're in. Okay, good.
Oh, count me in. That'd be
All
fun.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to stop screen sharing and I'll ask Madison to put everything back up and we'll have some discussion about this Apple thing. I'm curious as to what people think. So let's bring it up. So for those of you that don't know, the Department of Justice has brought basically an antitrust lawsuit against Apple. And what they're saying, and it's interesting because I brought this up years ago, and it's distracting to have both of me. So I think I'm going to
Oh,
should I keep virtual me? Let's keep virtual me. We'll get rid of that.
you
So basically, some of the complaints are that they take a large amount. So if you've ever put an app in the App Store that you are getting paid for or have revenue from, they put a lot of they've got a lot of things that criteria, and including they take a lot of money. So lately we've been getting a lot of fraud. And what's interesting is some of it's coming through the Apple App Store, and believe it or not, Apple is profiting off that. So like if they steal 60,000 by using Apple Pay by putting a debit card in there, Apple takes a chunk of that in two parts if they use an app and they use Apple Pay. But and I'll get to the point here. I'm going to let Melissa chime in here, but so they challenged their monopolistic practices. Another example is, and I brought this up when Apple Pay first came out. Mike, you may remember interviewing me about it because I had talked to Apple directly that their chip that they use for the near field, the near field connection, the NFC connection is walled off. So other apps can't use the NFC without going through the Apple platform, the Apple
Yep.
Pay platform. And so that was another example, which I said back then, hey, this seems illegal. Now, there's a whole lot that's going on. People have been looking into this for some time, and they've got 16 state attorneys, all kinds of people that are bringing this up. So I threw this at Melissa, as I do, to say, hey, Melissa, I want to discuss this on the show, or what do you think about this? And so her immediate response I thought was fascinating. I wanted to see where people land and what they think about it. So go ahead, Melissa. What was your response?
I haven't delved really deep into all of it. The first things I read made me think, okay, first of all, I'm an Apple girl. Everything is Apple. And I use all of the Apple stuff because it works well together. And I think as a business, they've spent a lot of money making it so that it's that way. Who has the right to come in there and tell them, sorry, now after you've done all this and made such a great product, we're going to make it so you can't have a great product? I don't understand where that comes from.
Well,
How
and
they have a right to do that.
specifically, Apple's mantra has always been tight connectivity between hardware and software.
Mm-hmm.
The software that they write is specifically for the hardware they have. And that's why when you buy like an Apple MacBook Pro or any of those, it's very hard, if not impossible, to upgrade. You can't like go, well, it's been a couple of years, I'd like to add some RAM. You just got to go buy a new one, right? It's also how they made their living off the iPhones, right? In fact, a few years ago, about in 2017 or 18, they were busted for forced obsolescence, or forcing the products to be obsolete by slowing down the processor on purpose on the older phones so that people would buy the newer phones. And their argument for that was that the battery was starting to wear out and they didn't want to use all the battery. That's how they got away with it. But the interesting part is that she's right. They did spend a whole lot of money of they spend a whole lot of money on all of these, connectivity, how well Apple works. But another great example is, who's ever heard of green bubbleism? So I'm trying to think if I know somebody on here.
With text messaging.
So if you are texting with a person and you have an iPhone and you're texting with a person on an Android, what color is their bubble?
Green.
It's green.
Oh,
And the
that's
reason
right.
it's green is because they don't use iMessage. And what Apple originally envisioned was, whenever you get one of those texts that was a green bubble, it would actually pop up a little message that says, a poor person is texting you. Would you like me to call the police? But they decided not to do that. They were fearful. But that's kind of the gist of it, is that there's this sort of stigma that people who are green bubbled are, using Androids, which by and far, by the way, iPhone is really the only main market, its biggest markets here in the United States. If you go across the pond or into Europe or anywhere else, it's by far and wide much more Android than it is iPhone. So that was their argument, that they don't have a monopoly, is because the only place that it's really the predominant device is here in America. Now, that said, vast majority of mobile phones, are here in America, and the rest kind of pales in between if you look at it. But so back to this question: is it fair for the government to come in and take a product that they had spent all this time on? We get a lot of advantages if someone's on an iPhone. You ever have a family member that just refuses to get an iPhone? And so they're all the green bubble, and that makes all the video look crappy. And so that's one of the things they're alleging, right? So you got a group message, and oh yeah, Mike's on it. Now if you try to tap back a reply, you get an actual message that said Mike liked your message. So, and then what do? You put pressure on that family member. You every time you see them, you're like, look, when are you going to get an iPhone? We're going to have to kick you off the family messages if you can't get in the program, right? But that's what they're alleging. So the question to everyone is, and I'll throw it out in the chat, is do you think it's fair of the government to come in and take something that has been specifically engineered to work the way it is with all the different things and insist they open it up to the world so other people can do it? Or, and if you do think that's fair, why? And the what the Department of Justice would tell you is that it creates more opportunity for smaller businesses. It creates opportunity for integration and innovation that Apple never would have thought of if they opened it up. Because right now the practice is if somebody does something kind of cool, kind of like Lucky Palmer did with the Quest, the Oculus Quest, Meta went out and bought the Oculus Quest and changed their name to Meta. So the idea now lately is not to ever let anybody innovate, but to absorb all these companies and buy them. So just that's right. It's not a monopoly. They're all alternatives. That's their argument. Anybody else want to pop it in? What do you think, Rob? Goodyear. You have some experience with this sort of thing, given your background.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute. Yeah, I mean, are we debating the blue bubble versus green bubble and the
No, I'm not.
or
I was
the-
using that to illustrate why the government's doing what they're doing, but we're debating whether or not the government should be doing what they're doing. And by the way, they would argue that they broke up the bells and that all worked out well. But I remember a lot of years that did not work out well. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, I mean, in any trust busting effort, there be dragons, right? So, it's the balance between capitalism and maybe egalitarianism, but at the end of the day, right? Adam Smith kicked Karl Marx's ass, right? Communism sounded like a great idea, and everyone being equal sounds like a great idea, but that's what got us out of the primordial soup, right? Our desire to
So you're saying that by opening it up, they're increasing opportunities for capitalism. So the DOJ saying, hey, look, you got to open this up and at least let other people have a shot at creating products and whatnot. Then that's, you're saying that would be a good thing.
Well, I have to stay neutral on that. Come on, John, don't bait me into it.
Yeah.
I mean, the
Hey,
question
I think it's Randy.
The answer is it
What's up,
depends.
Randy?
Just like everything else, the answer is it depends.
Yeah. Well,
your
but let me
audience
give you an
here,
example.
It's a highly regulated space that we're all operating in. So,
Right.
do we have a love-hate relationship with regulation? Yes. Do we
Yeah,
do we not like how fintechs or correspondent banking are draining our lifeblood and doing it in a haphazard way? Should regulators clamp down a little bit on those correspondent banking relationships, or should they let innovation fly?
Well, okay.
Well,
So
it depends.
I got to chime in here though, because it goes both ways, and it's a curve of diminishing returns past a certain point.
Yep.
When you're on the beginning of an innovation curve, having a more open platform inspires innovation, and I see it from both sides. I really do, because if you're talking specifically about, let's think about our favorite F word vendor and their walled gardens. Okay, I mean, put it in terms of that. Credit unions, by and large, have very difficult time getting open access to their core systems, to their data, so on and so on. And so the problem that you encounter repeatedly is a function of the people who are trying to control to manifest a business model that isn't conducive to innovation versus setting some guidelines and rules. And I think Apple kind of dances on that line specifically all the time, because they don't have guidelines in their walled garden that are just development guidelines. They also have morality guidelines, and they have content guidelines, and they have revenue share guidelines that prohibit a lot of innovation. But, when you're talking about it in terms of the variables that play into the conversation, what I see with, back to my favorite F word, credit union vendor, their walled garden isn't about innovation or guidelines of any sort other than preserving their revenue stream. And so, I think it's multifaceted,
you,
and that's
and
where
I-
that's where I gotta land in my
Well,
conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, so
And
I
let
think what
me-
you're saying
and let me
is
throw
it
out-
depends, right?
Well, let
Say
me
it
throw out
again,
some
Rob?
examples.
Go ahead, John.
Go ahead, robot.
Chime
Go
in.
ahead, robot. Rob,
Robot.
robot. I'll call you robot. Roblox.
Thank you.
I was
Maybe?
trying to type Roblox
Question.
because I'm going to show an article about Roblox. So
Yeah, okay. I'll just
um,
make a quick one. Society has an analogy here, right? What is a protected class? So are the innovators being nascent, a protected class that should have, you know, some freedom to operate until they are a majority? And then sometimes new protected classes, and I don't want to get into politics here. I'm sorry, this is just meta. Not Facebook meta. I'm speaking from a philosophical standpoint. When something becomes the incumbent, right, and not a competitive challenger, do they need to have eyes on them so that other you know emergent and nascent things have an opportunity to flourish and get their teeth into capitalism? Don't know.
Well,
That's all I'm gonna say.
Well,
yeah, and
real
let
quick
me
before you go
dive in on
on,
that.
before you go on, John, Jim puts a good point about, you know, how credit unions are regulated for financial safety, and that's not what this lawsuit is about. Jim, I wholeheartedly agree. What I'm pointing out as an analogy, though, is that like the vendor that I'm talking about, they're not walled gardening their systems for safety. They're walled gardening their systems for, you know, there's no law that says a core can't let you access your data. In fact, the whole open banking premise is about getting access to data. But you know, there's and that's the nuance of the conversation, much like Rob was saying.
It's pretty smart because what Ty's going into is really the structure of what his whole life is about. It has been for the last 10 years, which is whose data is it really? But let me throw out a couple other points. So one of the big things they also pointed out in the lawsuit was anybody ever go in and download the Amazon app or the Kindle app and try to buy on an iPhone and you try to buy an Audible or a book, you can't do it. Right. You can't do it because they said, hey, this competes with our books, which by the way, has anybody ever tried to listen to an Apple audiobook?
Awful.
You know, yeah, it's not a great experience. And so, but yet that's an issue. Then the big one was a company called Roblox. Roblox is a huge like metaverse that's built for, I guess, kids, but they have these levels in there. So in order to get around the rules that they started calling them experiences and in-app purchases. So you know the in-app purchase is really the big play, but really they aren't in-app purchases. What Roblox would prefer to do is to charge you for these other levels and experiences, but they have to go around it in a really long way, and sometimes Apple won't let them. But I want to comment on one, and exactly what I thought would happen is happening here, and I want to comment on what Jim said because I think it's very prolific, and that is I am very happy because as anyone here, well, other than probably Ty and maybe Rob, but I have built probably, I don't know, over the years, I'd say 20 apps that had to go in either the App Store or in both the App Store and the Apple App Store and Google Play, which is the name of their store. So if you do that and you send something to Apple, they're actually going to go through your code. And for example, I have released an app way early on that was using encryption that I actually had to get a release from the government so that I could release the app in Canada so that our Canadian members could use it. Because you know encryption is not supposed to pass a certain border. Apple found my encryption techniques in there, immediately came back to me and said I had to do it. You know what Google Play did? Posted it right in there. Boom. They didn't even look at it because they don't look at it, and that's their model. You want to put something in the store. So as a result, I have seen where there are fake credit union apps, to Jim's point, in the Google Play Store that aren't real. And then but the answer to that, what ended up being the answer to that was a third party company. I can't remember what it's called, like Privacy Guard or Guard Dog or something that, you know, it does like almost like SSL, like, hey, this is safe. We had it looked at by a third party company, and that sort of emerged as a trend. But what I'm hearing is exactly what I thought would happen is there are opinions across the board because we all, for those of us that do use Apple and Mac products, we like, for example, this product I have on my face right now, has this really cool ability, and I'll show it to you, for me to go, and I'm gonna start sharing my screen. Let me know when you see it.
Yep.
I don't know if this is gonna break it. It shouldn't, but let's see. But if I go in here, I can actually go to my Mac downstairs once it comes up, and I can bring up the screen on my Mac, right here. I think it's like waking up. I left it alone too long. Or I can share my screen to that Mac. So there it is. Let me go back here. It should just go up now. Come on, buddy. I think it's because I have it locked out. If it was logged in, it would go. But I can, and that's innate functionality. That's nothing I had to do anything to make it work. I was able to just make it happen, because it already connects. iMessages is like that. I brought this product in, and my messages are here. They started popping up. One of my favorite little examples of that integration, you ever have somebody come to your house and they're like, "What's your Wi-Fi password?" And you're like, "Oh my God, you don't, I can't." But on your phone, what does it do? Da 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 wants the Wi-Fi password. Do you want to share it with them? You know, so these are the things, and I'm just, I was fascinated by the split down the middle, because after Melissa sort of said, "Hey, don't break my Apple stuff," which was really kind of the point of her commentary, was, "Don't let the government break my Apple stuff."
Well,
So who's here that's old enough to go ahead?
I wanted to add to that though, because your Roblox example is a really good one. My kids play that you really have to call it a platform, and then each of the
Yes.
experiences in it are like another game. And so they made Roblox available in Apple, and it met all of the technical criteria, but then Apple intentionally limited the ability for people to buy the experiences through them, because they wanted a revenue share of everything that went on in a marketplace that Roblox created before they ever launched on Apple. You see what I mean? And I think that's at the
Yeah.
heart of the conversation in the lawsuit. And so I fall on both sides of this, where I love the Apple experiences, and the regulation of the experiences and the hardware make it a very rich environment, way better than the Google experiences that I've had. And so I prefer that. But at what point, it's like the same argument on inheritance tax. It's like, okay, I made a lot of money in my life and I paid all the taxes on it. And then just by transferring it to my kids, they have to pay taxes on what's left. It's like double taxing money that was already taxed originally. And that's I think at the heart of the argument with what's going on in this lawsuit about Apple, because they're breaking into and demanding parts of, that's why Amazon won't sell a book through their apps, and they make you go to their website to do it. Because if they did, Apple would automatically get a cut of their revenue for an in-app sale.
Okay, so here's where I'm going to blow your mind. I love what you just said. That's what I was trying to explain, and you did a better job of explaining it. So I'm going to throw this at John Ainsworth. Oh, John, he's always paying attention. He'll be here. All right, John. He showed up as C. Bauer.
that a
I don't
test?
know why. No, there he is. Okay. So, John, we've talked about that digital is expensive and that Crayons may need to charge for it in the future. And so one of the things that I see in the future is it could be that these agents that we build, because I think home banking goes away from the point and click, and I've explained this experience to you, and I had this discussion of, there's the home banking experience. If I want to go in and find all the statements that have this particular transaction on it, I got to go click around till I get to the statements. Once I find the statements, I got to download them and search through them. The experience that we want is a ChatGPT-like experience where I ask the ChatGPT agent, "Hey, go find all the transactions, and by the way, can you download all the statements in a zip file for me so I can have them, and also tell me what transactions are in which one. Give me a little file to point it all." That's the beauty. But I think to get there, at some point, we're going to have to break this paradigm of not charging for digital experiences. And you and I have discussed that many times. And I know at MasterCard, that was a discussion you had when you were there. So does Apple start taking a piece of that if you start charging for these experiences? And what does that look like? And would that be okay?
So, this is reminiscing of the interchange model, right? So if you think about it,
Yes, that's where I was going. Yeah.
You got access, I've got subscription. It's a new version of interchange. So the short answer is yes, because the alternative of what you'd have to do to go get that data is more problematic, friction, et cetera, et cetera. So you pay for convenience, right? That's
Well,
my
and I
Yeah,
agree with
I-
that part of the conversation, but again, the Apple issue is, but it'd be interesting because at what point does Apple decide that a digital banking transfer from an approved app
yes.
is part of their environment and they get a cut of that just because you moved money from a approved app?
So Ty, it's really
Yeah.
interesting. I had this fight with Visa and MasterCard, and there's a whole subset of this about what is a digital ID and who actually owns that. So, John and I have gone way back, but Apple has proclaimed in the past, because that ID is associated with you and you gave permission, that basically opens up an ecosystem. And, we could argue all day if that's accurate or not, but that's been their premise, for some time now.
Well, and I think that's at the heart of
Yeah.
the lawsuit is really how much do they get to take of transactions that transpire on their devices? I mean, at what point do they say, okay, even though you're not using Apple Pay, you're on Safari, but you bought from Apple, but we enabled the transaction, so we get interchange on the Apple transaction from your Apple wallet because it happened on our device. And I think that's at the heart of
And that's happening already. They get a little bit of every transaction for sure.
Only if your card's in Apple Pay. What I'm
Right,
talking
right. But if you start using Apple Pay for other things in the app, yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah, no.
That's scary.
But they disclose that. What I'm getting at is I think the heart of the whole argument is, just because I was on Safari shopping on Apple using my stored card in the Apple wallet or in the Amazon wallet, that at some point they're going to say they get a piece of that because they're like the storefront.
So let's throw something controversial in there. When are we going to understand that we have a right to exist in a post App Store world, right? Why do we have to espouse open banking, but then veer right into closed systems like the Apple App Store and Google Play?
That's a great
How does
point.
that make sense? And
Well,
to me,
and
it
you know
doesn't.
why?
A progressive web
what's interesting
application
about
does
that?
not need to load from an app store.
You know what's funny, Rob, is if you remember, the reason the App Store evolved was because Apple was going
It was a
directly
closed
after
environment. It
BlackBerry.
had 9 apps on it. When
BlackBerry was their biggest competitor when they first started. And for those of you that ever tried to load an app on a BlackBerry, you had to plug it into your laptop, and there was a 98% chance of that BlackBerry never working again.
Plug it
once
into
you
a
did
Cradle,
that.
plug it into the laptop.
Even that would do it, yeah. And so there wasn't an app store, and it was the Wild West. And so the genius of the App Store for me was as a person, because we have written a mobile banking app with a long time ago with Patelco. We put together a mobile banking app with OFS that we were testing with the BlackBerry with Patelco back when Callahan was there. And the problem was, how do we get it on people's devices? The other problem was, and this is a problem with the Androids as well, was there were 10,000 different BlackBerry devices, and there was a Pearl, there was a Pocky Puck, there was a whatever, and they all had different interfaces and different programming tools. There was no way. What Apple did was they normalized that with the App Store, and they said, look, if you use these UI tools and you do this, then it'll work across the suite of our products, which was valuable. But all that's, to your point, Rob, all of that's kind of gone because there's been other standards that have risen up that solve that problem, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason the Apple experience is so good. And that's because they stopped licensing their OS in 1998. Remember Supermax, anyone?
Yep.
Yeah, they stopped that shit because, sorry, we're being recorded, but they stopped that stuff because the experience was being degraded, right? And the wonderful thing about the Apple ecosystem is it's the most stable and most sort of accessible, not to use the modern version of that word, but the most reliable experience out there because they tightly control the hardware and they rigorously approve software that goes on that. So flip it around, obviously the entire ethos of Android was open source. The point of the Play Store was let's get as many people developing on this platform and make a run at Apple. So I mean, it is apples and oranges, the comparison between the two. But at the end of the day, both of those payment ecosystems are getting attacked, like, you know, with rogue apps that are, you know, what was the thing, even on the Apple store, there was a game app or something like that was sucking $10,000 transactions out of people's accounts.
Oh yeah, I just found that recently.
Keeps happening.
Yeah,
it keeps happening.
right.
So
Well,
it's tough, and I
because
think we shouldn't veer into, for the good and the bad of those app store ecosystems. I do not understand why we would steer an open initiative like open banking into what at the end of the day is a proprietary closed system. It's counterintuitive to me.
Well, open banking is more about, you know, is it your data or their data? And
exactly.
And standardizing the standardizing the transfer of that data. And I understand that. And Rob, I'm not arguing. I get where you're going, but if you look at the history of standardization throughout civilization, even pre-electronics, you know, you can set rules that standardize the experience sufficiently for safety and outcomes. Think about roads, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a dirt road or a 30-lane highway like in Houston, Texas, down by Katy, you know, generally speaking, you're going to have a 90+% safety experience, and you can pick whatever car you want. And, you know, Texas Department of Transportation doesn't get a piece of your car purchase because you did that. You know, well, I guess they do in the form of the taxes. And that's what it all comes down to in my analogy is what Apple does is they're like double and triple taxing. Even if, and you got to ask yourself, if I had the ability to buy an app or buy an audiobook in Audible directly from the app, I'd probably be willing to pay for the Audible application to do that. And so Apple would still get their money off of the application, but why do they get a piece of every transaction in it? You know, and that's where I'm coming down on agreeing with the monopolistic conversation. But I also agree with the superior experience, but I think that they've gone a bridge too far in some cases.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
And so I'm gonna put a hold on that because we've got to get to the giveaway. But so you kind of saw what I was trying to do here. I wanted to show you a device that was well integrated into the Apple system. You all got to see it. I just put this thing on. I didn't even get any instructions. Actually, Tom went down and picked this up and then gave it to me. I had to start over from scratch, so he got the instructions on it. But it's amazing. It's an amazing device. But would it be as amazing if Apple wasn't, you know, if you know, they were sort of forced out of their view here, and you think about Verizon and all of those. So we'll come back around to that. But exactly what I thought was happened is, which is, it's kind of like we all want our cake and we want to eat it too. And that is probably possible without Apple being in the loop. But I was just curious as what the people's thoughts were. So let's get to the giveaway. Before we run out of time, thank you, Rob. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, John Ainsworth. Thank you, everyone else, Mr. Yates, who contributed. And let's get to it. So if you haven't, please put your name in the run there, and we'll go ahead and get this moving. All right. Let's see who's going to get some tiles. Are we ready? And many thanks to the everybody got their names in?
Yeah, any last
still getting some
callers
names
that don't
in?
see their name?
Okay. If you don't see your name, put your name in the chat, please, so we can find you and put it out there. You're probably watching me do weird stuff, but that's how this works. And by the way, the eye tracking on this, Ty, is I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing. I mean, I've used a lot of eye tracking
for sure. And if I could afford it, I
Well,
would.
you're
love
going to
to
get your
have them on the
chance next
plane.
week. Yeah, you'll get your chance next week to at least play with it.
Fair enough.
Cody, also, I didn't see Cody was here. Hi, Cody. Welcome. Missed Cody. Is that everybody that wants in?
Going once, going twice.
All right.
All right.
Let's spinner.
Can I virtually press the button to spin the wheel?
We'll pretend
You
like
can,
we
yeah.
can.
Just
Ready?
when you do it. Hey, you did
Nice
it.
timing, Madison.
That was perfect, actually.
Oh.
Oh, Andy.
Woohoo!
Congratulations.
Hey, good news.
Yeah. What'd you say? Every now and then, even the blind squirrel finds a nut. I never win anything. I think we talked about that once. So congrats and very, very cool.
No,
Well,
you'll never lose anything
we'll give you-
again.
well, thank you to, oh, look, he's got pizza slices flying up around his face. No, that's not it. That's what they look like in this thing. By the way, the other thing, Ty, is the graphics in this are ridiculous. They're really clear. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to give you back a little time. I thank you for taking the time to join us today and have this discussion. Next week, we'll talk about Google versus the Department of Justice. No, I'm just kidding. When we come back, we've got a couple good discussions coming through. I'll probably have Ann back to talk a little bit more about what's going on with AI. If you did not get the information for the GAC meeting that's coming up, the virtual one, let me know. I also have another Filene webinar coming up, the second part of our AI with Lamont Black. And we got a lot of really cool stuff to discuss in there. For those of you who want a little preview, just Google Klarna and AI chatbots just to see what they've done. And Mike, thank you for joining from whatever conference you're at and sharing with us the people that walk by in your booth. And we're going to let everybody go. So thank you for your time today. And thank you again, William Mills and their group for pressing the button and giving away the tiles. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.